Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching us from. It's great to have you here at GCEF 2021, where we have the pleasure of welcoming local governments. We'll talk about the co-creation of paths for a green and inclusive economy. Today's session will be about sustainability practices for a social and solidarity economy. And it is a pleasure to welcome our speakers today. As we know, some of them are here face to face. We thank you for your presence, and others are also connected online. So it is a great pleasure to introduce our panelists right now, and afterwards we are going to provide two questions. First, we'll have a first round, and for the first round, we will have 5 minutes to answer. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Doug Orian, who is an expert in political science and history. He had a degree by the Haifa University. He is also an expert in social work at the University of Tel Aviv, and he works in the National Foundation for Cooperatives and Diverse Activities in Mexico. He has been an organizational consultant and planned several development projects for the creation of cooperatives, unions, and organizations at the national, local, and regional level. In Israel, Mexico, Colombia, Uruguay, China, Costa Rica, and other countries. He has had many works on cooperatives, social economy, union creation, and effective work, as well as management styles. Therefore, it is a great pleasure to give the floor to our speakers so that he can introduce the topic that we will address this session. Thank you. Go ahead, Dov Orian. Thank you. As you said as well, good morning, afternoon, evening. It all depends on our geographical location, but I would like to please request that the PowerPoint be shown.
Ahí está. Muchas gracias. Bueno, pues el tema, como tú dijiste, es...
Okay, so the topic, as was said before, is practices for sustainability based on social and solidarity economy. As a representative of the National Confederation of Cooperatives for diverse activities in the Mexican Republic, I'm going to talk about cooperatives from our own experience and perspective. We will talk about their contribution to SSE. If we go to the next one, please, you will see that the cooperative movement in Mexico, if it's possible to move to the next slide, thank you. Cooperative movement in Mexico, based on the general law of cooperative societies that it came into force in 1994 in Mexico for the organization of this sector. The cooperative movement is divided into 4 different levels. First, we have the grassroots level for production, consumption, savings, and credit. They are partnered with unions or federations. So these unions will have different types of cooperatives, and federations are for one specific field. Then we have the third level, which is the confederation level. In Mexico, there are 7 formally established confederations. They are formally acknowledged. So 7 confederations, and our confederation is one of those 7. These 7 confederations make up the superior Cooperativism Council, which represents the entire movement at the country level. Let's move to the next slide, please. So this confederation, just like any other cooperative, is organized into the following structure. First, we have the General Assembly, which elects the management and oversight
Recording in
councils.
progress.
And then we have commissions. We have commissions specializing in education, social and solidarity economy,
Recording
mediation,
stopped.
mediation, for example. And there are also other two commissions that are not in the original record. So the two that are not mentioned here are for gender equality and the youth. And we believe that it's very important to strengthen those areas. They are one of the most active commissions that we have in our confederation. As I was saying before, well, a confederation is the third level of the structure, and its main goal is to organize and integrate the production and services cooperatives so that we can work in a more organized, coordinated way with more structure. Let's move on to the following slide. So our main responsibilities are to represent the production and services sector, to provide support to our partner organizations, and to attempt to integrate, consolidate, and promote the cooperative movement for production and services. Up until a few years ago, we did this internally and externally. Since the higher council for cooperatives got stronger over the last few years, and it has strengthened itself quite a lot, the integration, consolidation, and promotion was also strengthened. We're still not moving on to the next one. Please, one more minute in the previous slide. So everything that's related to external activities started to be delegating. It is now delegated to the higher cooperativism council. So these responsibilities, our greater efforts, are dedicated to the internal level. It is all about how to integrate, consolidate, and promote movement within the confederation so that this sector of the cooperative movement can be stronger. Now we can move on to the next one. The activities carried out by our partners, you can see agriculture, fishing, livestock, and of course I don't have enough time to go into each of them, but I am going to go to the last two slides, which are specifically related to today's topic. So let's go to the next one, please. This is our representation map. This is our national landscape. So a confederation can be created when it is represented in at least 10 states. And in our case, we have a presence in 17 states, 20 cooperative unions, 4 federations, and more than 200,000 partners in 190 cooperatives. The strategic objective, which is how we begin to link this to our topic, is to consolidate and strengthen the Mexican cooperative movement in order to become leaders. And we want to set an example to other cooperative confederations. Let's go to the next one. We need a conclusion now, Doc. Thank you.
Dándole clic para que veamos todas nuestras redes de cooperación.
So now we are going to show you all of our bonds, all of our relationships within the Confederation. There are political and international spheres. So to the right side, as a Confederation, we have a partnership with the International Alliance. Let's move on to the next one. Our strategic proposal, which is closely related to the topic that we have gathered to discuss today is how to strengthen cooperatives, because of course they are the backbone of social economy. Beyond training, education, and capacity building, we also need to have a community impact in order to strengthen social fabric. And this is done based on an operational diagnosis. It's not only a document that will be kept on a drawer, but we need to start putting it all into practice to meet the needs that have been identified and improve communication and promote a cooperative culture. And in the next slide, the activities that we carry out concretely in all of these areas can be seen in the following slide. In the Confederation, a cooperative educational model has been approved. There are many experts in this area, but they all work with their own perspective and their own knowledge. But we want to make it much more shared, let's say, among everyone. In Mexico, there's practically no commercial activity at the cooperative, so this is something that needs to be promoted. And we also want to strengthen this movement within the cooperatives themselves. It does not sound logical, but it's very important to have more cooperation within them and with continuous training. It's also important to strengthen the bond between the community and the cooperatives that they represent. And we also want to work on cooperative governance. This is what we are working on right now in order to make them stronger. Congressman already proposed the general law to adapt the cooperative activities. And at the international level, we also have partnerships, and we work with SICOPA. It is the International Cooperative Alliance. So thank you very much. Let's move to the next slide. I am at your disposal should you have any comments or questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dorian. At the end of the session, we are going to have a Q&A session if there's time. But in the meantime, we're going to continue with our panel. Next up, we have an individual initiative session where it will be possible to learn more and have dialogue with all of our guests. Our guests have different profiles and experiences, and they are going to talk about their own vision. Talk about the possibility to co-create paths and actions to put everything that we have learned into practice. So I would like now to read our guest CVs, and this will also be the order in which they will be speaking in our panel. So they will take the floor to answer the first question.
As I said before, you will each have 5 minutes to answer the question. I will start with Hector Danza, who is an engineer in metallurgy. He also created the law for Jujuy micro businesses, in particular microfunding of businesses in the region. He promoted the creation of the Quality Institute of Public Administration. He chairs the Environmental Commission. He also works for the municipality in order to improve quality in the region of Jujuy. He coordinates institutional relations and management. Thank you, Hector. We also have here with us Naum Sanchez, who is originally from Nuevo León, and he is here sitting next to me. He's a forest engineer from the University of Nuevo León. He has a master's degree in forest sciences, and he heads the Nature Conservation and Rural Development Program of Southern Nuevo León. He is a consultant for the Citizens Council for Forest Protection in Nuevo León. He has experience in different fields such as community land management, forest, wildlife conservation, as well as community-based businesses to promote sustainability. Thank you for being with us. We also have Gael Queneros. She is from Canada. She studied anthropology and has a master's degree in social innovation. Gael co-founded the Thames Freedom Cooperation Community, which is a free space in Montreal. She also coordinated a program to support entrepreneurship and taught this in the University of Quebec. Since 2021, she is head of projects in her institution, an organization that provides support to social economy institutions. Thank you, Gail, for being with us. We also have, all the way from Taiwan, Yang Wei-Chu. In 2020, he was appointed deputy head of environmental protection of the city of Taipei. He is in charge of planning and managing sustainable development. He oversees environmental impact actions and promotes environmental educations to improve the quality of life in Taipei. The Department for Environmental Protection has promoted reforms to prevent pollution. Another one of his aims is to use organizational structures to overcome the great challenges of environmental protection. He works to promote more efficient environmental services to satisfy the needs of citizens of Taipei. From Madagascar, we have Saraika Randrenalihona, a young woman who's passionate about the environment and nutrition. At the age of 20, she founded the Harmony organization, where she worked with environment, nutrition, health, and education. She currently is head of projects in this organization and also in TED Companies R. She also worked as dietitian and diet advisor for people looking for assistance in this area. She also studies the master's degree. She received an honorable mention on anthropology and sustainable development. We also have from Colombia, Yubisa Maria Redondo Sanchez, who is here in the museum with me. She has a master's degree in environmental management, and she's an expert accompanying local organizations and regional networks that promote productive development and organizational consolidation in national and international networks, as well as promoting systems of quality and trust. She has also worked doing economic analysis of small-scale family and community-based agriculture to promote agroecology and sustainability. Thank you very much for being with us today. Finally, I don't know if we have with us, because as you know, using technology can also be challenging when people have connectivity issues, but another of our guests is Simon Levy. He studied law and specialized in international trade in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He received an honorable mention and specialized in the Law University. She received the specialization in the Popular University of China. He studied business administration at ITAM, and he has a PhD on law for public-private partnerships of the Autonomous Institute of Mexico. So as you can see, we have a very interesting panel with different profiles and experiences. And I believe this will really enrich our discussion. As I said, we will be discussing good practices for sustainability from this perspective that we have been working with, which is social and solidarity economy. So let us begin with this first round where participants have 5 minutes to answer this question. How can we promote and commit to promoting participation of all stakeholders in society as part of the strategy to overcome environmental problems that affect the planet? How can we promote and engage all stakeholders in society as part of the strategy to solve the environmental problems we face today? Let's start with Héctor Daza. You have 5 minutes to answer this question. Hello, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here as part of this beautiful Global Social Economy Forum. I come to you from Northern Argentina, Cocuy. Can you hear me? Yes, we hear you. We hear you very well. Cocuy has 4 agroclimate areas: Uña, Quebrada, Valle, and Yunga. The experience that I will be sharing is that of Yungas in the area of Valle Grande. But first, I also wanted to say that our Ministry of Popular Economy, which works with social economy, is a very interesting ministry, which is because it depends on the promotion, the Ministry of Promotion. It was founded 6 years ago, and it seeks to promote social development. What's interesting about our ministry is that we believe that social and solidarity economy is promoted by autonomous groups who can be self-sufficient, who can participate in networks, cooperatives, through mutual assistance, through different forms of association. So we have a very basic idea which guides us as we look at sustainability, which is what we're here to talk about. We say that a territory is sustainable if we can uphold 3 pillars: the value of people's work. That's the very first pillar in our opinion. So what can we do to promote value, to make sure the value of people's work is acknowledged, giving them access to markets? There are many mechanisms that we can use to help improve their income and raise the value of the work people do. The second pillar is social productivity. We want to strengthen every entrepreneur, producer, organization that works with social productivity and social economy. We fund collective projects in this area. And the third pillar, which I think more closely relates to the topic of the panel, is taking care of the environment. So what do we do in all of our activities and all the work that the ministries do to take care of our environment? With those 3 pillars, we try to promote the idea. We have heard this said again and again in the forum, many what do we do? But I think we also need to discuss how do we do it? We have built institutions with public policies that put the government at the service of social and solidarity economy, not the other way around. We need to adapt our institutions to the needs of social and solidarity economy. So a decree to decentralize our ministries was passed so that we can give support to communities working in the ground to promote the three pillars that I mentioned. So we do a lot of capacity building within our institutions in terms of legal framework, specialization, and trying to train managers that can help facilitate educational processes in order to promote the work model in our territory. What is the work model that we promote at the institution? And this can be a reality in every activity, whether you work with gardeners, cooks, cheese production, sweets production, honey production, all rural and urban activity should be promoted. We try to train in a comprehensive fashion, and our training processes follow a series of key criteria that allow them to be implemented. But basically, what we want is the technical institutions, local institutions, municipal governments, and financial institutions, which would be us, together with beneficiaries, have to communicate in order to carry out these training processes. I want to be very brief because I know I'm running out of time, but every 2 weeks we meet and we have 100 training workshops. We meet with more than 1,200 local producers, and we follow them for 6 or 7 months to give them skills-based training. The skills-based training is all about know-how, not only having theoretical knowledge, but also know-how, positive behavior, positive coexistence. This is the work that we have been doing. And in my second intervention, I will be sharing some concrete examples of environmental sustainability. Thank you very much, Hector. Next, I want to give the floor to Naum Sanchez. Hello, good morning and good afternoon to all. Thank you for the invitation. Our initiative is based on two premises. It's about dealing with the loss of vegetation coverage in Mexico. There's 70% loss of vegetation. And second of all, dealing with poverty in Nuevo León, especially. And this is how our philosophy was born. We cannot think of conservation without development, but we also cannot think of development without conservation of the natural ecosystems. There are many consequences that we have felt of trying to develop without this. We've been working since 1998 to approach rural communities in Nuevo León, especially in the south, where they mostly live. Everything is private property in the country, either small landowners or more large-scale landowners, but we focus on social property because I think this is what requires the most attention. We follow 4 main steps in practice. First, we analyze the viability of capital investment, environmental capital, social capital, economic capital, and human capital. Next, we create the strategy with the community. We look at strategies, we analyze potential scenarios, and that's how we determine how to move forward. Once we have a strategy, we try to form partnerships with municipal governments, local governments, and businesses. And after establishing the partnerships, we generate strategies with them. They are 15-year strategies that are also part of the government strategies, because we want to partner with the governments to promote the actions that can help us meet our goals. After doing that, we work on 6 goals: the preservation of environmental capital of the actual land, capacity building for environmental and economic sustainability, local production, community-based organization, and respectful of diversity and the cultural diversity locally. And once we consider all these goals, we try to do advocacy work in public policies, both at a state level and at a federal level, because we have identified that the public policies are very general and they cannot really help solve specific problems that the communities face. So with all of these ideas in mind, we created a program. It's called the Comprehensive Program for Rural Development and Nature Conservation. It seeks to turn those communities into sustainable, self-sufficient communities through environmental management in order to improve the quality of life of people. We cannot talk about conservation if landowners don't really have the right conditions to take care of the land. So my proposal here is that governments should be more horizontal in carrying out all their tasks, because that way they will be able to solve the specific problems and large-scale problems that are leading to the loss of habitat of many species and eventually their extinction, the loss of environmental services, including water and carbon catchment. So that would be my first intervention. Thank you. Thank you very much, Naum. Now I want to introduce, thank you, Naum. Let's give him a round of applause. These are all very complex topics and they can make us feel like things are happening. Next, I would like to give the floor to Gael. Gael, whenever you're ready.
Bonjour, je suis très contente d'être ici aujourd'hui en virtuel.
Buenos dias. I'm very happy to be with you today, even through a virtual platform. I'm Gaël Généreux, and I work for an organization in Canada that seeks to hold meetings between researchers and professionals of social economy in order to co-create innovative solutions that can allow social economy organizations to face the challenges of the world. We work to find funding and scaling up of projects. I want to introduce some of the work that we have been doing since 2016 for socio-ecological transition. Of course, there's nothing new in what I'm about to say. Believe me when I say that it's important to think about the future of the next generations. So this is why we believed in the importance of building a bridge between social economy businesses and circular economy. We believe that that would lead to more sustainable development for the planet. But what is circular economy? Circular economy opposes our current model based on linear economy. Linear economy focuses on extracting resources, transforming them, consuming them, and then they become wastes. The amount of waste production these days is impressive. We don't really take advantage of all the resources we have. And circular economy seeks to contradict this, and it attempts to flow through a cycle to reduce consumption. That's the first step, reducing consumption. But afterwards, it's about reusing what is already being used, trying to recycle, upscale, put them to good use once again in order to reduce consumption of raw materials. The first step is to reduce consumption of feedstocks to reduce environmental impact. So for that, we need to reuse resources that already exist, optimize development chains, and repair instead of simply discarding new things. The moment our screen is shattered of our cell phone, we buy a new one. Why not repair things a little bit more? So it's not simply about buying things and being owners. I think everything should start being based more on the use of products instead of ownership. That can also help us to repair and avoid buying things we don't need. It's also important to resell after we repair. And we always have to think about what happens to the materials of the products that we use. And that's where recycling and reusing come in. In social economy, there have been businesses for a very long time who had followed this model of circular economy, at least in Quebec, but we realized that not every social economy business is protective of the environment. Some do have a negative impact on the environment. But at the same time, not every circular economy business has a positive social impact. Think about Airbnb, which can have a negative impact for many people. Or think about Uber. Yes, it's a car that is used in many ways, but at the same time, it doesn't always have a positive social impact. So the idea is that social and circular economy can work together to respect social values and environmental values at the same time. That can lead to profitability even. And I think that's what sustainable economy would look like. My time is running out, but I wanted to mention some of the key concepts of what we propose to protect the environment and society. Maybe I can go deeper into this in my next intervention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gael Généraux. We will give way to our conclusions afterwards, but before that, let's listen to our guest from Taiwan, Yang Wei-Xiu.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for attending this forum. I am Yang Wei-Xiu, the Chief Secretary at the Department of Environmental City Government. Today, I'm to be here and talk of recycling and the circulation of furniture regeneration. Here is an outline for my presentation. First, I will talk about history of treatment. Second, we will move on to promotion process. Next, I will briefly go through implementation method and implementation results. Finally, it would be my conclusion. The total area of Taipei City is 272 square kilometers, and it is divided into 12 administration districts with a population of about 2.57 million. The city is densely populated with an average of 9,455 people per square kilometer. In both Neihu and Wanhua districts, the city has set up furniture regeneration exhibition sites. In addition, the average per capita GDP of Taipei City is 32,219 US dollars, and its average carbon emissions per capita per year is 4.38 metric tons. History of waste treatment in Taipei City. Since 1970, the waste treatment in Taipei City has gone through different stages, including open-air dumping, sanitary landfill, incineration, and resource recycling. Starting from 2000, the city has promoted per bag garbage collection fee to achieve resource recycling and waste reduction. Now, the city's resource recycling rate has increased largely to 65% in 2021. Following the garbage collection fee, Taipei City has further promoted the recycling of kitchen waste, as well as full recycling of resources, zero landfill of waste. Furthermore, Taipei City has launched various measures to reduce the amount of waste volume at source step by step, while increasing the amount of recycling resources. For instance, the city has tried to work on new projects, reuse of huge waste, and so on, hoping that it can achieve the advanced measures and goals as zero waste, full recycling, and circulation of sustainable recycling.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sariaka, head of the Harmony Association. On behalf of my team, I want to congratulate all of you, especially the organizers, for making this event possible. GCEF 2021, a forum to discuss social and solidarity economy. We are aware of the importance of this event, and it is with great pleasure that I'm here before you to talk about our initiative. I'll try to answer the questions that were made.
Une éco-association s'intègre donc dans le thème développer l'association territoriale et
So an
internationale.
association seeks to become an eco-association when it takes into account inclusive development and sustainable development.
Ni nos prochains, ni nos futures générations, mais comment? Donc, pour mieux comprendre
Especially because we have to
la question,
leave a better world to future generations. So how can we
gouvernement, groupe,
answer this question of what actions and strategies countries can adopt in order to make the world a better and more inclusive place? I'll share two definitions. First, what is an association? And then what is an eco-association? Let me share my screen so that you can see all the strategies that can be implemented to make a better world. We all know that an association is a group of people gathered around a project or sharing activities in common. For example, we have nonprofit associations such as ours, NGOs, and INGOs. If we discuss this even further, then we can talk about an eco-association, which is an association that adopts economic behaviors and eco-gestures. So it's about a transition from eco-association to eco-associations. And to do that, we must contribute to reducing the impacts against the environment so that the world is more sustainable. This can become a reality through daily gestures and behaviors without needing many resources. For example, this is an eco gesture, a digital eco gesture. Just some examples. For instance, when we're no longer working on our computer, we should turn it off instead of setting it to standby. We can also reduce the brightness of our screen to save batteries, as well as deleting unnecessary files. These are all ways to reduce our carbon footprint. We should only print if it's necessary. This is another way to minimize impact. You shouldn't print every email because every time you print something, you waste paper, there's a carbon footprint, and it leads to many other wastes. So saving paper is important. This is another example of how to save paper. Use pages on both sides, because in order to create these papers, greenhouse emissions happened, trees were logged. So this is another example of an eco gesture. Waste management is also important, recycling. And finally, another example is having flower pots. Having just a few flowers is better than nothing. You don't need to have a big garden. Any small contribution is positive for our environment, and it is these small-scale actions that we can promote locally. These are what we call eco gestures, and this is how we can become eco activists. This is my initiative. This is basically my proposal. It's transitioning from associations to becoming eco associations. Thank you very much, Sariaka. Next, I would like to give the floor to another guest who is here in the room with me from Colombia, Juvicia Maria Arredondo Suarez Sanchez. Hello, and thank you for the invitation to be here. We have been working in Colombia for many years, and there are many different ways in which we can promote solutions. As an organization, we're part of a national network promoting good living in the local communities is extremely important. There are many grassroots organizations that we try to support, including indigenous associations, women's groups, NGOs, faith-based organizations, universities and research centers, who all work with these topics. Since 2017, we've taken on the responsibility to promote initiatives of social economy. To do that, there's a campaign to visualize the work that agricultural producers do. And this helps to promote the sustainability of families in the community level. We have tried to show that these markets go beyond the simple economic exchange. These are places where we can have access to food products that were produced through better practices, but at the same time, markets are spaces to build closer rural-urban links, better relations, and they allow our producers to be more autonomous in selling their products, making the supply of healthy food easier. Every step has been coordinated with producers, with organizations, markets, and other stakeholders in the market. We need to learn about their lifestyles, about their potentials, their needs. And that is why those markets must be protected. The pandemic brought on by COVID-19, but also situations such as what we are seeing in Colombia this year of a national strike, which greatly affected mobility and food distribution. There are spaces where not only food is sold, but more specifically, food that in at least 55% were produced through agroecological practices. 65% of families are using local seeds, and therefore they benefit the biodiversity of our country. Keeping these products that have been lost in time because of the globalization of seeds, and therefore these are also spaces of resistance, which show us how we can also have access to different products, because markets are places for barter, for exchange, for other associative schemes. Therefore, people who don't necessarily have the resources to buy their own food can find alternatives in order to have access to healthy food, and therefore have access to that which I think is a basic human right. Thank you very much, Euricia. Let's give her a hand of applause. Thank you to all our panelists for answering the questions, for giving us very interesting answers. To sum up everything that has been said in this first question, I think we need to continue thinking about the challenges of economic growth. So the basic question is, how can we live in harmony with nature? What are the adjustments that we need to make in order to respect the values and principles of social and solidarity economy? How can we be more participatory and be aware of the risks? Because we've been experiencing a lot of negative environmental impact. Next, I would like to introduce the second round of this panel, and we will be making a few changes. This will be shorter. You will each be given 3 minutes to answer the question. I'll ask the question and we'll go back to hear the answers in the same order as before. So I'd like to ask you for conclusions. We also have with us still our friend, I'm sorry, Dov Orion. I don't know if you could maybe start by giving us a recap of this first round, and then we can begin the second round of discussion. Yes, of course. I'd be happy to. After listening very closely to everything that my fellow speakers said, I believe it's very important to work on community education. All the policies that are implemented locally, nationally, regionally, and all the models that are designed look very interesting. For instance, what Gael was talking about is very interesting. The model of circular economy that can substitute the linear economy model. But all of those policies and models can be strengthened and implemented if they are preceded by a massive educational campaign, not only to educate about that very specific topic that we want to strengthen, but I think it's more about educating society in a broader sense so that they are willing to change some behavioral patterns that we all find very comfortable. I mean, we probably want to continue doing what we are doing right now, but the change that we're promoting right now implies not only a political change, but mindset change. That's where it needs to begin. So education is essential for that. Perfect. Thank you very much. Let me now go to the second question, which is the guiding question for GCEP 2021, which is the following. What are the actions and strategies that people, governments, groups, and societies, as well as countries, must take in order to build a better and more inclusive world? What key actions must be promoted locally? Let me give the floor to Hector Daza first. Thank you, Hector.
Well, what I had said before is that it's all about public policies and based on a guiding principle related to the three variables that we mentioned before. So the value of work, the social and productive side, and the protection of the environment. So if we work on these three aspects, we will be able to move forward. And the educational processes are based on conscious, these are awareness issues. All of the stakeholders in the solidarity economy should be aware of the important aspects, the economical, the economic, social, and environmental side. So you can still act. I will provide very concrete examples. For example, there is a recycling network. The Secretariat provides metal baskets to collect plastic materials and then exchange it with other cooperatives who manufacture recycled products. So this is a productive chain based on solidarity, and the solidarity should not be thanked, it should be returned. So this is part of the things that we do. On the same line, we also have technical schools where we promote and fund the development of machines to treat solid waste, such as plastic, for example. In all of the livestock procedures, we have more than 400 small producers. It is all agro-environmental practices, so there are no elements related to herbicides, for example. Chemicals like that are not used at all. We only use natural and agro-environmental products for production of organic meat, for instance. There's also the production of chemical-free leather, be llama, goat, or bovine leather. This is also part of what the artisans do as well, because they provide the design and they work together as a team. There's also an agro-environmental crop system. We have a patrimony site where we have training processes for the protection of the environment and agricultural practices. It's all free of chemicals, and they are all natural products that have been created using these chemical-free practices. And in the Valle Grande state, which is made up of 5 municipal commissions, at some point it was very difficult to have access to this place because there were no paved roads, but there are very large areas and villages that have had no man-made intervention. So there is a natural park to the south, and to the north we have another natural area, and we are carrying out very comprehensive sustainability work, training in human rights, rural practices, and the great advantage is that these are all coordinated sustainability actions. And this was a great advantage not to have human intervention. Thank you, Hector Daza. Now I'll give the floor to Naum Sanchez. Thank you. I would like to talk about the experience that we had, which started about 20 years ago. And over this time, Cemex, a cement company, adopted the initiative. And before I was opposed to the company, and now I realize that they have many good initiatives. And per hectare that is destroyed, they can retrieve 8 hectares for environmental practices with the Carmen project. And there are many funding initiatives for processes like this. The return on investment is 1,500%. So per peso invested, they have 15 pesos back. They have 15 pesos in return for the production that's happening. So there is not only environmental compensation that needs to take place, but also social compensation, because it's not only about creating jobs, but also learning about what kind of impacts you're having and how this impact affects not only the other sectors of the population, but the entire planet. If there is integration of public policies where these types of taxes are considered, or if the community has a chance to actively participate in public policies without putting democratic the procedures at risk, we will be able to protect the environment and also promote social and environmental responsibility on behalf of the companies. Thank you, Naum Sanchez. Thank you. We are applauding everyone who is live here with us because our audience is highly motivated today. We are halfway through our forum, but we still have many other topics to cover. Now we will give the floor to Gael Llaneros. Go ahead. Thank you. It's very interesting to hear about everything that you have said. Education is fundamental for the transition into more just and socio-environmental cities. If I look at it from the circular economy perspective, education is usually individual for consumption choices. For example, what can I choose, and what are my needs, my consumption needs? And we should always make the best choice. But at the same time, we also have a responsibility at the macro level. So how do we also make companies choose the best production practices, the more responsible practices, with the funding adapted to network between the industries, for example. We can also make companies work together to share resources, and maybe the waste from one company could provide raw materials for the production of another company and to take care of the energy consumption as well. So companies have a great responsibility at this level. I was talking about the social economy companies who promote justice, collaboration, collective decision making, the adding of value for this type of models. And it is very important to consider this, in our opinion. And of course, there is also the responsibility of the government, the laws, for example, to fight against obsolescence. It should not be allowed for companies to produce products that will not work over time, because they will only produce waste. So companies should also choose to do what's right. They share the responsibility. If the world economy can be more circular, now it's only 8.6% circular, but if it doubled, so if it were only 17% circular, we could reduce climate change by 2 degrees. So it's very important that they are all on board in order to have a better future. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gaël Généreux. Now we are giving the floor to Wei Tu Yang. Go ahead, please.
Waste material flow of Taipei City. Simple flow chart showing the generation, treatment, and the reuse of garbage disposal in Taipei City. Waste discharged from manufacturers and customers are incorporated into appropriate mode of processing. Then, based on the classification scheme, the waste will be sorted into general garbage, resource recycling, kitchen waste, or large waste items, such as furniture. Promotion process. Since 2002, the DEP of Taipei City has started to run the pilot scheme to recycle and reuse discarded furniture and bicycles in different areas. In 2003, the collected and transported waste furniture was repaired, refurbished, and sold to citizens in need at a lower price. In 2006, the Neihu Furniture Generation Exhibition and Auction Site was established in Neihu, the first of its kind across the nation, promoted by the DEP, and it has attracted other counties and cities to observe and learn. As of 2013, we have begun to give away regeneration furniture to the needy and indigenous people. Implementation method. For our implementation method, citizens can hand over waste furniture to recycling trucks by appointment. Next, at the furniture recycling site, the cleaning team will sort our repairable or recyclable items, and then masters at the furniture recycling site will repair them with creative ideas and transform them into valuable recycled furniture. At the end, these final products will be sold at public auction. Implementation results. Since 2003, the DEP of Taipei City has repaired the refurbished discarded furniture, which is then provided to people in need at a lower price. Realizing sustainable resource management, utilization prevention, volume reduction, recycling and reuse, and reducing waste generation are the directions that the government needs to work hard on. These directions will help the city move towards the SDG 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. In addition to increasing government financial resources, it has also implemented the circular economy with more than 150 million NT dollars of resources added from 200,000 items accumulated so far.
Who talked to us about transformation, socioeconomic transformation, and the importance of identifying needs and being able to achieve a transformation in order to have more balance, in the ecosystem with a global vision, and also prioritizing responsible consumption, considering sustainability and with the participation of all stakeholders in the process. So he showed the flow of the recycling process. Thank you very much. Now we would like to give the floor to Shakira Renralijona. Go ahead, Sariaka. Since we don't seem to connect, we would like to thank Sariaka for being here with us, but then we are going to give the floor to Yubisha Maria Redondo Sanchez. Go ahead, please. Thank you very much. Well, I think one of the main actions that we must take or strategies that we must adopt to have a better and more inclusive world regarding nutrition, for example, is the understanding of the importance on behalf of all the stakeholders of the changes that need to be made to have a more sustainable environment. So we must start thinking about full cycles and not just putting all the responsibility into one of the stakeholders' hands. Regarding nutrition, it's essential to have a full analysis from the production to the consumption stage. So it's not about one side. There are not just exclusive policies for consumption or trade, and sometimes all of these separate policies can lose sight of the problems that are shared. So we are developing a policy making exercise for the community and for producing families. So it goes from consumption to all of the stakeholders that are part of this cycle. And our goal is to have participation, to have proposals from all of the local stakeholders, regional perspectives, the needs of men, women, children, organizations, companies, and all of those who participate in the food industry and the production of food. So it's very important to understand that we all have rights to good nutrition. We are all responsible for driving change, but it is up to the governments to provide spaces and the possibility to do so by considering the contribution of
the population communities and all of the groups who have been working together, and this work could also be replicated in other places. We should never leave the local knowledge behind. It should be prioritized, and governments and ourselves as organizations should always put this in the first place if we wish to generate sustainable change over time. Thank you very much, Yubisa Maria Redondo Sanchez. Let's give her a round of applause. Now we are getting closer to the conclusions of the second round, where we have talked about how awareness is so important for all of the stakeholders. It is important to have moderate action as well, to have a collective perspective, having clear goals for new environmental policies in order to drive new ways to develop an economy. We talked about a solidary, inclusive economy, green economy, and we included all of the sectors, not only the organizations, but also the government. We addressed global, local, and regional decision-making. And it is very important to include technological tools. There should be a balance between finance, business management, individual action. There should also be greater communication. This type of forums can help us bridge those gaps, and due to the progress made during the pandemic, we have been able to identify opportunities. There have been great leaps in technological progress. So I would please like to ask each of our panelists to provide a conclusion. We are going to give them a couple of minutes to do that. This will be the final intervention for each of our panelists. Let's continue in the same order and give the floor to Hector Daza. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. I am very glad to have participated in this panel. Well, the conclusion is that in order to have permanent institutions, we must involve all of the stakeholders, and we must make a great effort to do whatever is in our hands at the local level. We must always uphold our society's most cherished values. There are almost 3 billion people who are working in cooperative solidarity organizations, and we all asked ourselves why it was not possible to promote the values that we all agree are very important to change the current reality. So to stop wild capitalism. So in this book, it is said that there is a series of things that we have not done correctly. For example, transforming our organizations to make them truly cooperative, because we are not only partners when it's convenient before an assembly, or then we become clients when we are providing goods and services. We don't exchange things. We are all in our own little islands, and we don't have any type of sharing between organizations. As was said before, our training is mostly theoretical and not practical. So with this new proposal and our presentation to the forum, we believe that it would be important to have institutions that allow everyone to participate. Everyone who is interested in developing the solidarity economy from an environmental or sustainable perspective would be able to do that if they approach the secretariat and if they provide their ideas, not in an individual way, but in a collective approach in order to uphold principles and values that we all share. Of course, this is ethical. It's considered to be an ethical narrative, but it should become a reality for society. Okay, thank you very much, Hector Daza. Now, Naum Sanchez, go ahead, please. I think some of the most urgent actions that must be taken are contemplated in the capacity development and training according to the principles of social solidarity economy. We should also seize the opportunity to transform socioeconomic structures and state structures in order to mitigate the impact of the current crisis for hunger, poverty, lack of access to drinking water, for example. And we should also work in all areas to efficiently bring together all of the governmental sectors and in education, as well as our colleagues said. Just as an example, with the current technology, university degrees that are highly specialized could also be broader to build greater visions, broader visions that will allow the new generations to make more appropriate decisions on our own. So I'm a forest engineer, so I specialize in care of the forest, for example, but I don't really know much about the global economy, let's say. So let's think about a more general training as well. Thank you, Naum Sanchez. Now we will give the floor to Gaël Généreux. Go ahead, please.
Merci. Donc, je vous
Thank
remercie.
you. Well, I would like to thank you for the time that you provided for my presentation and for the opportunity of providing our perspective. I agree completely with everything that was said. Social economy has a great potential to create structural change in a collective way. We have an ideal that should be achieved, but it should be achieved collectively. We need to have an economic system that is more supportive, more just in many different ways. So I had just mentioned the economic systems that should respect the limits of the ecosystem. These are two pillars that should be integrated. There should be collaboration between them. And so this is an economic system that is fair, with fair decision making and systems that respect the limits of the planet. With these changes that require a lot of work, we will achieve a greater goal. So in this case, we would have a fairer, more sustainable and more pleasant world to live in. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gaël Généreux. Now let's give the floor to Jovisa Maria Redondo. Go ahead with the conclusion, please. Well, I think a very important issue that we must consider is that there are many initiatives, many proposals which aim to improve all conditions and to find a common well-being that we need so much. Unfortunately, perhaps because this is not based on the capitalistic methods that we have used so far, these initiatives remain invisible or are completely ignored. It is important, therefore, to change the consumption logics, the consumption thoughts that have been ingrained in us since we were children. So it's very important to have awareness about these initiatives, launch campaigns, create partnerships. In our case, for example, we have partnered up with the Foreign Ministry from Belgium and SOISO, which is also a cooperation agency that will allow us to develop this kind of initiatives, because on our own, it will not be possible to make it, so we need to work together. It is also important to look for ways to replicate these proposals so that increasingly more producers find spaces to sell their goods, and this will also lead to a transition to better and more environmentally friendly practices. How do we have more education about consumption? Well, it is important to have a very clear idea of the production practices and the impact on the environment. So who produces the food and the consumers? We have the right to decide based on information. So one of the things that we must aim for is to disseminate information so that we don't make decisions based on ignorance, and there is a great ecosystem that must be well known. Thank you very much, Juvisa, for your conclusion. And well, we are about to close the second topic, and we still need to reflect upon this issue. We cannot backtrack. We cannot undo what has been done. So we must continue to protect our existence. And we must deeply respect everything that happens around us, everything in our environment. And we must always act with nature in mind. We must harmonically coexist with the planet. Thank you very much. We would like to thank our panelists. We would like to thank the panelists who are also online participating here. And while this is not over, we will continue with our next panels. Let's give them all a very big round of applause. And let's continue moving forward. And I would like to give the floor to the organizers, the hosts, so that we can continue. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will take a photo for the panel, so please turn on your cameras if you are online so that you can be on.
Estamos aquí, donde todo hace sentido, en este lugar lleno de historia, de grandeza, nuestra casa, donde hace más de 7 siglos inició todo, nuestra gran Tenochtitlan. Este es nuestro sitio, donde honramos nuestro pasado, vivimos el presente y soñamos el futuro. Lugar donde habitan guerreros y guerreras que históricamente han luchado batallas juntos, solitariamente. Ayer, la historia presentó un reto sin precedentes que marcó nuestro camino, pero hoy nuevamente nos unimos para levantarnos como lo hemos hecho siempre. Porque la Ciudad de México está más viva que nunca y su corazón late intensamente con toda su magia y esplendor. Una ciudad lista para recibir a nuestra gente y a nuestros invitados con toda seguridad, para crear en ellos experiencias y sensaciones únicas que nunca olvidarán. La Ciudad de México es un lugar consentido y que consiente a quien la visita, porque puedes respirar una ciudad que tiene nuevos pulmones, con parques y áreas verdes recuperadas que hoy son admirados en el mundo, con espacios sorprendentes que han cobrado una nueva vida. Ciudad de México, un lugar donde se observa y se aprecia el arte, la cultura, cuna de tradiciones, lugar para mirar en la historia y para observar la modernidad y visionar el futuro. Estamos aquí donde el gusto por nuestra gastronomía no tiene límites, lugar de sabores, texturas, aromas y colores. Una ciudad hospitalaria, con tacto para atender a nuestros invitados como se merecen, con el mejor servicio, amabilidad y calidez. Una ciudad segura que gracias a un eficiente programa de vacunación prioriza la salud y la seguridad de todos. Estamos aquí donde el latir se escucha a través de los sonidos, el de nuestros habitantes, el de las calles, los parques y rincones, los espacios que marcan el pulso de una ciudad vibrante. Ciudad de México, una ciudad donde todo hace sentido, que se mueve, que no se detiene, movilidad de clase mundial que llega lejos y alcanza un nuevo destino. Sean bienvenidos a la ciudad que lo tiene todo y que hoy se reactiva con el impulso de su gente. Esta es la capital cultural de América, la capital de los derechos y la innovación, una ciudad que vibra, late y se siente, una ciudad segura. Visita la Ciudad de México. Gobierno de la Ciudad de México.